So what happens when you take a regular e-bike? You give it two 1200 watt motors, two 48 volt batteries, and a price of only $1,599 with a discount code in the description. If my math is correct here, you should get this, the Meelod DK300 Max dual motor e-bike. Right off the bat, this is a heavy box coming in at 145 pounds. If you hate your FedEx delivery guy, this is a good bike to order because he's gonna have trouble getting this thing off the truck. And this is how everything looks packaged up. You can see Meelod peeking through the back on the seat. And then we've got this thing right here that we're gonna get out. So in here we've got our headlight, which seems like a really high quality headlight. This thing's heavy. And we've got a little toolkit down here. A reflector, which is gonna help people see us when we're riding down the street at 35 miles an hour on our dual motor bike with two batteries and two 1200 watt motors. Then we've got some standard bike pedals, which are silly because, come on guys, are we really gonna be pedaling this thing? And then they gave us an e-bike manual, which is actually really thin and short, which is nice because we're not gonna read this anyways, probably. You won't catch me trying to lift this one out because this is a heavy bike. What is this thing made out of? Lead? Oh. This thing literally feels like a tank. And we got some beefy suspension on the back here. I think this is adjustable even. Then we've got these really crazy tires on here. And then on our front wheel with its built-in hub motor, we have 160 millimeter disc brakes. We'll get all the zip ties off. Last one. Tires do come pre-inflated, and man, this front wheel is heavy since it's got that 1200 watt peak hub motor on it. Set that off to the side for now. It's like we've got our fender cleverly packaged in between the battery here. And speaking of batteries, like we said earlier, this is a dual battery bike. You can see first one here, second one down here. And we've got a tiny seat in comparison to this giant e-bike. Let's get these batteries off and see what we're working with here. These batteries, of course, do lock up and they come with two separate sets of keys. Top battery here is a 48 volt, 20 amp hour battery with a max discharge current of 55 amps. And that sounds like a lot. And the bottom battery here should be pretty much the same thing. Only this one looks a little bit different than the top one. Two different shapes. Let's see where they hid the charger so that we can get this thing charging up. All right, we've got a big charger in this box, and this is actually a charger with an interesting little feature. This charger is a 54.6 volt, 4.5 amp charger, and this may look like a normal charger, but if you look here, you can see we have two outputs on here, so we can charge both batteries at the same time with just one charger. All right, so while the batteries are charging over there, let's get the rest of this mess figured out. This is the side of e-bikes that they don't show you. Meelod. I can already feel it. This is gonna be a fun bike. So this bike weighs a whopping 136 pounds with both batteries. This is a steel frame bike. This thing is truly a monster. And it has a weight limit of over 400 pounds. So if you're a very big person, you're gonna be able to ride this thing no problem. Definitely the heaviest bike I've had on this channel. Also this beefy spring in the back here. This seriously looks like a motorcycle shock. This thing looks like it can take some abuse. So does this frame. Everything feels really sturdy and robust. All right, so getting on our handlebars here, and these handlebars have a surprise that we'll talk about in a second. So if you look closely, you'll see that this bike comes with front turn signals. We'll see if it has rear turn signals too, but that is a pretty cool feature. I think it's about time we get this front wheel on though. Also, they've got this contraption here, which I've never seen, which I'm assuming just prevents shipping damage. So we've also got these that go on the axle here for extra safety. We're also gonna plug in our front motor here before we forget. Front wheel is on and brake is rubbing just a little bit. Now we're gonna get this front fender installed as well as our headlight. Front fender installed, and it is metal by the way, which is nice. Rear one is also metal too. Man, this bike is just super stretched looking. You can see you're literally not even sitting over the rear wheel. You're sitting like right in the middle of the bike. Headlight is installed. We'll see how it looks when we fire this bike up. First, now the most important part of a bike that we are never ever going to pedal because it has two motors and two batteries is the pedals. We're gonna get those installed. Also, nothing special about these pedals. They don't fold or anything. They're just regular bike pedals. Again, the only reason they're here is to tell the police that you're on a bicycle, officer. This bicycle is a normal bicycle. It doesn't go over 35 miles an hour. Hopefully it does go 35. We'll see in the test later. All right guys, so now we've got both batteries on this thing, and this is a heavy bike. When you move this, you can feel the weight, especially with this battery high up here. You can see the top battery here has this little power button that you push in and it turns green. And the bottom one is a much more traditional power switch here that you flip on. So guys, we got the DK300 Max fully assembled, and this is an awesome looking bike. This thing looks so sick in person. I love how it's got that extended rear swing arm. It just looks so cool. So let's go ahead and take a look at this bike a little bit closer. So up here we've got our headlight, which is very bright, and we have this high beam and low beam, which can be controlled on the handlebars. You just hold down plus on the screen to turn it off. And then as far as our wheels go, we have our CST Scout e-moped style tires. These are like legit tires. These squeak when you burn out on them. Like it's kind of funny. Like these are actually almost like a compound that a car tire would be. Anyways, we've got our front hub motor there. Spoked wheels, which it would be nice to see mag wheels, especially at this price, but not bad. 160mm dual piston Meelod branded brakes right here. Should get us to a stop real nice on this bike. And we've got our Meelod branded front forks here. And as far as adjustments go, you have your preload here, and you have a compression adjustment here. Overall front suspension feels pretty soft. Then obviously here we have both of our batteries. Both of these are the same specs, they just have a little bit of a different shape. We've got a steel frame with some pretty good looking welds here. They're not the best, but it seems like it will be strong enough. We've got a cool little decal right here. And then back here, we've got our huge spring, which does seem pretty soft, and there is an air adjustment here. I don't have my shock pump right now, so I'm gonna get my shock pump and we'll fill that up at some point. We also got this right here, which I'm assuming is like another battery mount, but obviously you can't put a battery here because this spring is in the way. And we've got our seat right here, which feels pretty comfortable so far. And then we might have a place to mount like a rack or something. They've got a rack coming on the way, but it's not gonna get here for a few days. So then we've got our Meelod branding on the back here, and then we've got our rear tail light, which is a brake light, and it also turns on with the headlight. Also, it is a turn signal along with the front right here. So that's awesome that you have front and rear turn signals. Definitely helps out if you're gonna be riding this on the street, which you probably will be because this is a pretty quick bike. Back here, we've also got our Meelod branded dual piston brakes back here. Hydraulic, of course, same 160mm rotors. Got our regular e-bike kickstand. Again, steel frame, Meelod branding here. Got a cool decal right here. Pedals here in the middle, of course. I think this is a cadence sensor on this bike. Then we've got our Shimano Tourney TZ derailleur with 7 speeds right here, pretty standard, but I doubt you're gonna be pedaling much on this bike. And this is our cockpit right here, a nice layout, kind of a BMX style handlebar. I have it a little bit swept back here. But over here on the left, we have our front hydraulic brake, Meelod branded, of course. Then we have our headlight controls, and then we have our turn signal controls right here. Then we have our horn. Pretty piercing, it's not the loudest. Then we have our screen here, and on our screen we can go through our pedal assist numbers. If you hold down the bottom minus, then it's gonna put you in walk mode, and if you hold up the top plus button, then it's gonna turn on and off your headlight. And if you press the power button, that's what's gonna change between your front, rear, and both motors. In the middle, you have a nice area for a phone mount here. I kinda do like that the screen is over on this side. Then you have your Shimano shifter here, pretty standard, pretty average, probably not gonna be using it much. And we have our thumb throttle, which I was kind of disappointed by, but I guess it is what it is. And we can always put on a twist throttle at some point. That shouldn't be too hard, should just plug right in. And we have our rear brake on this side, again, Meelod branded over there. And then we have some pretty comfortable feeling grips. They are rubber and they do bolt down so they don't move, so that's nice. Overall, I do like the handlebars on this. It is a nice setup. My riding position is pretty comfortable on this bike. And this is how I look on the bike at 5'9", pretty comfortable seating position. I was a little worried that I'd be too far up on this bike, but it's not bad. But I don't think you're gonna be doing much pedaling on this bike. This isn't really the most comfortable pedal position, but like I said, I'm 5'9", and it's not too bad. We'll see how it goes on the ride out there, but overall, this is a pretty comfortable feeling bike, and the suspension feels pretty good on this thing. All right, guys, so enough talking. Let's get this DK300 Max out here for a ride and see how it does. This is gonna be fun. Guys, so we are out here on the Meelod DK300 Max, dual motors, 48 volts, 2 batteries. This thing is awesome. Like, if I had to sum this up in one word, this thing is like a unit. This thing is a tank. The CST Scout tires are legit tires, and when you lock the wheels up or when you take off from a stop, it's funny, it sounds like a car is like getting in an accident, because all you hear is the first thing that I noticed is these Scout tires. These tires actually make this thing feel like a motorbike. It makes it feel like a moped or something that you can take on the street. You have so much more grip on these and just so much more confidence than you do with the cheap knobby tires that come on regular e-bikes. It's a much stickier compound than a regular tire, and it feels amazing on this thing. So one thing about these Scout tires is they're not loud like they are on most e-bikes because these aren't really knobby tires. This is more of like a street compound. This is more of a compound that's made for asphalt, and it grips really, really well on asphalt. And especially with the weight of this thing, it just feels so solid, and it feels like you can really take turns quick. Sometimes on regular e-bikes, you don't really have that confidence because there's not that mass behind the bike, like a regular motorcycle or a moped or something. But with this, you do get some of that weight, and it is definitely not a bad thing. This bike feels really good. I have no problem taking a corner at like 25 miles an hour out here. So this obviously is a dual motor bike, and you're gonna be riding this thing around in dual motor most of the time. And this thing is quick. If you've only been on like single motor regular bikes, you're gonna really be blown away on this thing because it's a whole other experience, dual motor bikes. And especially with these sticky tires, you don't get that wheel spin like on some of the other cheaper dual motor bikes. Like on my other Amyet S8, you're always spinning that front tire because it's just not made for that type of torque. But on this, you're not really spinning that tire, it just grips. It's gonna help your acceleration, and it's gonna help your braking as well. So this bike just feels like an absolute like tank. You feel like you can really take this thing anywhere. We're gonna turn off-road here, and the suspension on this is pretty good. It's kind of in the middle. It's not the most comfortable I've ever been on, but it's also not super firm. I think that rear shock is made for a bit of a heavier person because it's not really, I'm not getting that much feeling or travel out of it. But I mean, off-road, this thing's just handling this like nothing. And I'm not flooring it right now because I'm kind of standing up so that the GoPro doesn't shake around too much. Getting around, this thing just feels awesome. I'm gonna see if I can hit the top speed down this straightaway right here. Top speed's claimed 35, and the GPS and the speedometer are both matching up pretty well, so this speedometer on here on board is pretty accurate. So yeah, you saw that we hit about 34 right there. And one like characteristic of this bike I've noticed so far is that you get up past like 32 and then it just starts giving you more power. It's kind of weird, because usually bikes are kind of running out of wind at 30, 32 miles an hour, but this, it seems like something kicks in and it just kind of keeps pushing you forward up to about 35 miles an hour. And back there, as you saw going uphill on this off-road section right here, you were accelerating up that. This bike's gonna handle a lot of what you're able to throw at it. Oh yeah. The brakes on this bike are good. And as you can hear, we locked up that rear tire, and you can kind of hear what I was talking about, how it sounds like a car tire, how it sounds like you're trying to stop from like a car and all you hear is One thing that I don't really like about this display is that I can't see a way to get the battery voltage on here, so you're just kind of going by what the battery bar is telling you, which is fine, but I typically like to see, a battery percentage, or at least like the voltage of the battery, so that I can kind of get a better idea of where I'm at. Yeah, this thing just gets up and goes. The acceleration is awesome. On a dual motor bike, you're really gonna feel that mid-range power. Right where a single motor bike is typically topping off around like, 24, 25, this is just getting started. GPS looks like it's indicating about 35, 34, 35. I've had motorcycles in the past, and the thing about this bike is it legitimately, you can kind of just hug the tank and steer with your legs. Like, this thing just has so much mass moving that it feels like a motorcycle. It's actually hilarious that this bike comes with pedals. And speaking of pedals, the pedaling experience on this bike is not very comfortable. So this is a cadence sensor on this bike, and I'm 5'9", and the pedaling on this is a little bit awkward for me. So if you're taller, like, this is just not gonna be the optimal experience. You're not gonna be able to get in like a good stroke, and obviously the seat's not adjustable. And even pedaling in pedal assist 1, I'm going like 20 miles an hour here, and I'm not doing anything for this. I'm just ghost pedaling right now. I'm not doing any like work as far as pedaling goes. So really, this bike is not set up for pedaling, even though it does have pedals and everything. If you want an exercise bike, like, this is probably not a good option for you. This is more of a throttle type of bike, especially most moped style bikes are gonna be like that anyways. Also, speaking of the pedal assist, you're gonna get full power in any of the pedal assist numbers, which is nice. So I mean, you can just sit in pedal assist 1 if you do want to pedal, and then in pedal assist 0, you're completely on your own, and you don't have the throttle at all, so you're just totally on your own as far as pedaling goes. Tip more of this off-road stuff. I'm gonna go ride this bike more in the bike lanes and stuff later on, but I have a feeling that You know, cyclists probably aren't going to look at you very nicely with this bike. I think you're going to get some glaring looks on this thing, because this just does not look like a bicycle at all. It looks like a little mini bike. Once you start picking up that momentum on this thing, oh, the off-road is just so much fun. Almost hit 30 miles an hour on that. So if you want to take this bike off-road, you're gonna have no problem with like light to medium off-roading on this thing. So having two hub motors kind of overcomes that lack of torque, because you have the motors helping each other out. If you are gonna be doing some off-roading like this on this bike, it is absolutely capable of it, and you can go for it. If you're gonna be off-roading a lot though, I'd probably say you want to invest in a set of knobby tires instead of these Scout tires. Again, these are more set up for the street. Let's see how it climbs this hill right here. It's gonna come up to the foot of this hill and just floor it. Yeah, I made it up there. Also, there's a little bit of a rattling sound coming from the back of this bike, and I'm pretty sure it's the rear fender. It's like tight on there. I don't know what's going on. All right, let's try it one more time. You heard that tire chirp there. This is a really cool bike. I've actually been wanting to check out this bike for quite a while now, and they were nice enough to send this bike out for me to do a review on and everything. And I'm gonna be making multiple videos with this bike, but I kind of knew I was gonna like this thing from the rip. I mean, what's not to like about a dual motor bike like this, especially one that looks this badass? You know, this bike really inspires confidence when you're going kind of fast like this, like 34, 35 miles an hour. On a lot of e-bikes, it feels kind of sketchy, but I think the combination of the tires and the weight of this thing really do a good job in making this feel like a bike that you can ride fast for a while. A lot of bikes, you just kind of touch that top speed for a second and then you kind of back off. You're like, all right, I'm coming back. Like, that's kind of sketchy. But this just feels like you can cruise at, you know, 35 miles an hour like nothing. And even though this is a dual motor bike and it has a good amount of torque and everything on it, it's not like throw you back in your seat like torquey. It's not going to throw you off the back of this bike, but it is enough to where it feels strong. It feels like you can get out of situations with this power. I'm gonna go down a curb here and see how the suspension is. It's good, but it's not the softest in the world, that's for sure. All right, let's see how this thing climbs some hills. Oh yeah, handles hills just fine. For a while now, and I put about 21 miles on this thing already. And one thing that I've noticed is that the seat is not the greatest on this. It's kind of uncomfortable when I'm, you know, driving a long distance. There's nowhere to really move on this since the seat's so short, but overall it's not bad, and you know, you can swap that out with an aftermarket one. This has been a really cool bike so far, honestly. I'm really happy with this, and I think that for the price, this is just an awesome bike. This thing literally feels like a little motorcycle. It's amazing. Like, just cruising around right now, it feels super stable, and this is probably the closest e-bike I've ever ridden to a motorcycle. That headlight a little bit, nice and bright. We got our high beam too. I'm gonna definitely do longer term updates on this bike, because this is something that I'm gonna drive a lot. I mean, I already have 22 miles on this thing in the first like 3 hours of owning it. Overall pros on this bike, I think, are the fact that this thing has dual batteries and dual motors. You're gonna have a lot of power for a long time on this. I could see you easily getting 40 to 60 miles on this. We'll do a full range test at some point. The riding position and everything, the seat isn't the most comfortable, but you know, you can switch that out. The thing that I wish this display had was how many watts you're pulling, and also your voltage too, but you know, the battery indicator's right there and it's okay, but I prefer something where you can actually see the percentage of the battery. But I'm gonna start heading back to the e-bike back cave now, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts and close this video out for you. First look at the Meelod DK300 Max, and what an awesome bike. I am going to be making some more videos on this bike, a little bit more of an in-depth review and, you know, 100-mile update. And I plan on riding this bike a lot. I actually have over 100 miles on it as I'm recording this right now, so I'm going to be doing some more update videos on this thing. If you do want to pick this bike up, you can use the link in the pinned comment or the description, and it's going to give you a nice discount there, and it helps support the channel. So if you guys do want to see the review video on this bike, I will leave a link to it now. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.